Forgive me, Asahi, but I cannot let you back inside the village. Completely taken aback by this unexpected statement, I looked up and focused on one of the guards, a powerfully built man who was aiming a crossbow similar to Asahi's right at us. You nerd. What? Zan, what are you talking about? Can't you see she's hurt? She needs help. I don't enjoy doing this, but I can't open the gates to Kahe village. Forgive me, Asahi, but I can't let you back inside this village. Not with him present. What? Zan, that's crazy. Can't you see? Taki's not a Darkling. Maybe, but he could be an Underworlder. Once again, I was taken aback by Zan's words, but at the same time, I found myself seeing how what he was saying would make sense from his perspective. From what Asahi had told me, the people of her village and every other village in the overworld had learned a very hard lesson about the dangers of trusting a stranger. And even as I glanced down at Asahi, I could tell that she had not even considered this possibility. What? But he's not an Underworlder, well... I could tell that Asahi was flustered, and I had no idea at that moment as to how I could explain the possibility that I wasn't even from their world. And as for me, my shock was fading, and was giving way to an annoyance. I had already been through a great deal and had been subjected to tremendous turmoil as a result of everything that had happened, and had pinned my hopes on getting to this village. And here we were, right outside the gates, and they wouldn't even let us in. But, wait a minute! If I was an Underworlder, why the hell would I bring Asahi back here for help? To trick us into opening our gates, of course, and making it easier for Darklings to break in and overwhelm us. Groaning deep in my throat, I found myself once more unable to argue with the logic behind Zan's suspicions. Making it even worse was the fact that, according to Asahi, they had only seen 3 Underworlders, when there were doubtlessly more where they had come from. And on top of that, my clothing definitely marked me as being different. Even though I only had my pants and shoes on, they were different enough from the standard garbs of the people here that they could be recognized as being alien from them. But I'm not one of those monsters. Asahi, you don't think I'm anything like them, do you? Of course not. Zan, please trust me. He's not an Underworlder. He's already risked his life and gone through great pain to bring me back here. Why would the Underworlders do something like that when their forces already outmatch us? To win their battles that much easier. After all, that's the sort of tactic they've used to amass their forces in the first place. I wasn't happy about this guy, but there was no arguing with him. And while I was getting increasingly annoyed, I still remembered that this guy was basically doing his job and trying to protect his village. Getting mad at him or trying to argue with him wouldn't accomplish anything but giving him more of a reason to leave us standing outside when Asahi was still hurt. And so I racked my brain, trying to come up with a different angle. Something I could use. Won't you at least let Asahi back in? Look, I could set her right outside the gate, and then step away so you can get her back in. Then you won't be letting me in at the same time. Zan raised an eyebrow at this, but before he said anything, another of his guards moved to his side and whispered something to his ear. But even as they spoke, Asahi placed her hand upon my shoulder. Taki, no! You're not one of them, I know that. You know I'm not an Underworlder, and I know that. But I don't think we're going to be able to convince him of that. Besides, you're hurt and you need help. So are you. Wincing as Asahi reminded me of the numerous physical injuries I had suffered that day, I promptly sighed and gave her a smile with a stiff upper lip. Yeah, but, hey, it's better that at least one of us gets patched up instead of neither of us. I know, but... Liliana? But, wait, you don't understand, Now I was really getting confused. Asahi was acting like I wasn't even here anymore, and someone else was there in my place. The fuck? Before I could give any real thought to trying to figure out what the latest headache dealt to me by this bizarre world, Zan spoke once again. Boy, what is your name? My name is Takashi, sir. If you are so sincere about allowing Asahi to be treated, then we will allow you to deliver her to the gate as you were so offered. But keep in mind that we will be watching for any signs of treachery, and the instant you deliver Asahi to our door, you are to retreat from it and remain within our view at all times. Is that understood? I considered this, feeling at least some relief that Asahi's people weren't going to abandon her. Of course, that still left me in a lurch, but half a loaf was better than none. And besides, perhaps me doing this would at least help show these people that I wasn't their enemy. As I reached this conclusion, I returned the focus to Asahi, who was still having a conversation with someone else? ? If you could just have Dawn examine him. Yes, I know how important she is, but Liliana, please, you can't just... At this point, Asahi's face fell in regret, right before she let out a deep sigh. Alright. If that's your final decision. I tried to explain to the head of our village that you aren't an enemy, but she won't risk the safety of our people for a complete stranger. The way Asahi winced made it clear that I read this right, but seeing fresh shame in her face made me feel guilty as well. And while I was definitely upset about the cold reception we were getting, I wasn't about to take it out on her. Look, let's get you taken care of first. And while you're in there, maybe you can find some way of convincing whoever you were talking to that I'm not a bad guy. I'll try, but Liliana has become very cautious since the war with the underworld started and... Oh, I probably should explain. As I mentioned before, the village heads can communicate with anyone under their care. Alright. I should have remembered that. Nodding to this, I started towards the gate, making certain to keep an eye on the guards, on the off chance that any of them got itchy trigger fingers. Right. I got that. Listen, isn't there a way for me to prove that I'm not an underworlder? Some kind of, I don't know, a test I could take? Dawn is capable of sensing the power of the underworld in anybody, but she can only do so from very close range, which means that she would either have to come outside, or we would have to let you in. Unfortunately, she's the only one of her kind right now, so Liliana won't risk her in any way. Guess that makes sense. With that, I turned my attention to the formidable walls surrounding Kahe village. Like everything else, they were made up of blocks, but there was a set of blocks that were clearly different shade than the rest of them, and they were situated in such a way that made it clear that they were doors. So I made my way towards them, all the while aware that I had at least a dozen crossbows trained on me at all times. I really am sorry about this. Smiling at this, I hefted up Asahi a bit more, my arms more tired than I wanted to admit, having to support her slender and supple form as long as I had, drawing my breath as I adjusted my balance to compensate. Hey, I understand. You just do me a favor and try to convince them to let me in as... My foot had caught on a rut that I hadn't seen, sending fresh pain through my frame and knocking me off balance. Cringing in realization, I hurriedly struggled to compensate even as I staggered towards the gate. Asahi was just heavy enough to make it that much more difficult to recover, and so I stumbled forward with increased speed, until I realized that I was about to smash into the gate with Asahi and my cranium about to take the brunt of the blow. Ow! At the last moment, I managed to pivot my heel, and fell against the gate with my back to it, which still wasn't pleasant, but it's better than the alternative. Are you alright? Yeah, sure. Just another bruise to go along with the rest of them, and, Boy, what are you doing? Wincing at the sound of Zahn's voice, I looked up from my uncomfortable stance with my back to the gate and saw several crossbows aimed clumsily at us. Can't they just see that I just tripped? Come on. And while our proximity to the wall made it difficult for me to really see anything, I could definitely imagine Zahn's unhappy expression. It's alright, Zahn. He just tripped, that's all. Yeah, like you care. After everything we've been through, seriously, why couldn't they just open the doors? Why can't... What? Just as I was thinking this, I felt the gate that supported me move away. Fuck! Still dependent upon the gate for support. I was completely unprepared, as was unable to do anything but cry out in surprise as I fell backwards to the ground, with Asahi issuing a cry of shock. Hello? Why is she smiling? She shouldn't be smiling right now. Right before she crashed up on top of me. somehow managing to land with her chest smothering my face and her legs splayed out to the sides of my waist. What? The gates are open? Who's this? Underworld treachery! What is that? Emperor Palpatine? Those were the loudest voices I could hear over a cacophony of demands that the gates be closed and the various brutal actions be taken against my person. But while I was aware that it might be a good idea to do something before the guards came and turned me into a living pincushion, not only did I have no idea what to do, but I was too stunned to move and having a hard time breathing. Someone must have opened the gate for us. Speaking of something, need air, please. Huh? Oh, right. Without another word, Asi lifted her impressive cleavage from my face, allowing me to take in blessed oxygen once more. It also allowed me to see such things as the interior of Kahe village, people freezing in place to look and wonder at us, and the 24 guards all aimed with their crossbows storming through the area, moving to surround us. I definitely could have lived without having to see that, especially the part where each and every last one of the guards brandished his or her crossbow and took aim at me. Why? I just want to be loved. All of them muttering things like "Underworld scum" and "Kill that dastard," as Zahn moved to the front and center and aimed his crossbow right at my eye. Asi, no offense, but right now I'm really hoping this is still just Dad's video game. Asahi, move away. Asahi moved, alright. What? Huh? She immediately moved to crush her best against my face once more, and even wrapped my arms around my head to make sure I couldn't pull away. No, Zahn! Look, I don't know who opened the gates, but it doesn't matter. We're already in. So, why don't you just let Dawn take a look at Taki and... Liliana's orders are that Dawn isn't to go near any strangers. We can't afford to risk losing her to the darkness. Now get away so we can... Wait. Is this Dawn? Please say it is, because it's not the other person. Oh, cut it out, Zahn. I could tell that the new speaker was a woman, but given that I was suffocating in Asahi's cleavage, I didn't really care. Nor did I care when the blonde archer set up a bit, because I was suddenly a bit more concerned with getting precious oxygen into my lungs. But the clear smile I noticed on Asahi's face caused me to pause and look up in surprise. Dawn! Yes, I was right! Hey, Asahi! So, what's the story with your new boyfriend? Asahi's cheeks burned somewhat at this remark, even as I craned my neck back to get a look at the speaker, and found myself completely floored by what I saw. Hello? A bunny? No, that's not. Those are ears, but they're not attached to her head. When I'd heard about Dawn's special abilities, I had been expecting something that would fit into the confines of the fantasy realm setting that Burokku seemed to be. But Dawn's clothing seemed like it would be much more in place on the Vegas strip club than this world. With the... Did I say strip club? Whatever, works. With the bunny ears she wore as part of her outfit only serving to enhance that image. My suspension of disbelief just took a major hit. Oh, there it goes again, as I once again considered the weak possibility that I was still trapped in my father's game. Boing boing. Dawn approached Aussie and I with a carefree smile. As her long pigtails and bunny ears she wore bounced with her every step. Of course, those weren't the only things that were bouncing, for the scantily clad woman had, without a doubt, the largest set of breasts I had ever seen up close in my entire life. But even as I was trying to wrap my brain around Dawn's garb and build, Zahn held out his arm to impede her progress. Don't get too close to them, Dawn. We don't know who this boy is, and... Boing boink. Oh, lighten up, Zahn. He's not an underworlder. That should be obvious enough, even to you. Glad to see you made it back, Asahi. At this, Asahi's smile and blush faded as her eyes fell to the ground. I just wish I wasn't the only one who made it back. Dawn's own smile suffered somewhat, but then she visibly forced it back into place and gave Asahi a comforting pat on the head. Hey, don't let yourself get so down. We've won some, we've lost some. As long as we stay in the light,
Then there's still hope. Hey, Zahn, why don't you and your crew help them up already?
Zahn and the others exchanged looks of concern at this. Are you sure about this?
Of course I'm sure. This guy doesn't have so much as a tiny whiff of underworld power in him. Besides, you can see by the color of his cheeks that he's harmless.
Is that how you can tell? It's pretty obvious that Zahn and the others weren't exactly happy, but none of them seemed inclined to protest. Instead, the guards lowered their crossbows and a few moved to help Asahi back to her feet. And before I knew it, another set of hands were helping me back up as well. Everyone clear of the gate. We need to get it closed immediately. Not inclined to argue with Zahn's orders for once, I allowed myself to be escorted out of the range of the open gate. Glancing over at Asahi, who had a guard supporting her on each side, I watched as Dawn sidled up along her as well.
So, Asahi, aren't you going to introduce me to your new boyfriend?
I couldn't help but wince at the amount of sheer tease in Dawn's words, and her smile of pure mischief didn't help either. And while I couldn't be sure about how I looked in response to the bunny girl's words, I could definitely see how flustered they left Asahi so as she uncomfortably gasped. Dawn, he's not my... We just met, and he's not even from around here.
Really? Just lovers for the sake of loving then, huh?
Asahi's face looked something like a pitcher being filled with punch from the bottom up, and she looked so flustered that I could have sworn that steam would come out gushing out her ears at any second. Dawn, please stop with that. Excuse me, Dawn, was it? I can call you Dawn, can't I? Stop it, you're gorgeous. Dawn immediately bent forward to give me a perfectly good view of her mammoth crevices that lay between her breasts and flashed me with an impish smile.
Of course you can call me Dawn. Heck, you could call me a lot of other things too.
At this, Dawn then proceeded to hold up her hand so she could count off her fingers.
You can call me hot. You can call me sexy. You can call me gorgeous. Heck, you can even call me if you're lonely come bedtime.
All of a sudden, I found myself thinking of Candy and how eager she had been to get my pants. And I couldn't help but think that she had nothing on Dawn's sheer level of tease. Maybe, Dawn is based off Candy. This didn't exactly make me happy, and it was clear from the way Aussie suddenly scowled that I wasn't alone in this. Dawn, cut it out.
Why? Didn't you tell me he isn't your boyfriend?
The way Aussie's eyes went wide made clear her surprise and displeasure at having walked right into the trap. But even as Dawn smirked in triumph, I was getting upset. It was clear that the blonde archer had already had a horrible time that day, and that the last thing she needed was the bunny-eared girl adding to it. Excuse me, Dawn, don't you think we should focus on taking care of Asahi? She's still pretty banged up. I do agree with this, Takashi. In that, there are more pressing matters to attend to. Such as closing this damn gate! Why is this taking so long? As Zahn turned his gaze back towards the gate and scanned the people that I guessed were working on closing it, I find myself wondering who exactly decided to take pity on us. But before I could give any real thought to that matter, I noticed Dawn sidling towards me even as we continued onwards.
Good point. After all, business before pleasure.
Noting the way Dawn was looking at me and getting a bit of a bad feeling as a result, I decided to clear my throat and try and change subjects. By the way, thanks for, speaking up for me back there.
Hey, no problem. You're not an underworlder, so I told everyone as much. Besides, you're pretty cute, and it'd be a shame to lock up a cutie like that.
I really wish you would be more serious about this. Even if this boy isn't an underworlder, that doesn't automatically make him an ally. But he did carry me back after I was injured.
And that couldn't have been easy. Besides, I happen to be an excellent judge of character. Or have you forgotten which of us was the one who kept saying that the underworlders were trouble when everyone is too busy delighting themselves to the pleasure they offered?
Oh, my goodness. She's so...